All right, everybody, this is Sheets, and we're doing a little bit of a switcheroo. I'm going to be firing up the recording, and Bobby's going to be just joined in from at sea, sort of at sea. He's in sea, I guess not at sea. He's got the land behind him, sitting at sea, something like that. In any case, his connection, I would say, it rates about a 3. Which is going to be okay, actually. I just have to make sure to leave enough time for him to speak after I'm done speaking, but I've learned, I think, how to do this. So I guess, first of all, Bobby, would you like to review anything that happened yesterday, or would you like to get straight into today?
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't, I had a nice lineup. I had the Reds and Rays double stacked a couple times in some big lineups on FanDuel. Didn't quite have the India part of it. And then I had India on the DraftKings, but I didn't have the Aquino in those lineups. So it just didn't quite get the mix right. And did have Brandon Lowe and Brousseau with a home run, and Meadows who had a good game. I just couldn't quite get the mix exactly right. Gausman started off strong and didn't quite get there for me. So I ended up having a good night on FanDuel, a bad night on DraftKings, but you know, it was one of those nights. It's just I felt pretty okay about my play. How about you? How did you have anything? Any sweats or anything?
No, I had absolutely nothing. Just literally nothing. Even my pitching, I started off. I had Cole and Miley. They outscored, I think, all the rest of my hitting. I think, and that was that's the way that just kind of worked out. In my video yesterday, I have to apologize in advance because Kenny's going to yell at me if I don't do more of this. But as we do kind of like develop the site a little bit, we are going to have to, you know, be a little salesy. Again, just the way it's going to have to be. And every time I do a video where Kenny says, dude, you got to remember to bring up this. You got to remember to bring up that. I know I'm just so into the content that I got to remember. So I'm going to apologize in advance. So like when I refer to say Saber Sim or Roto Grinders HQ, you know, we do have some affiliate relationships with them that if you aren't subscribers to there, we prefer if you signed up through us. And if I refer to the premium projections on True DFS, again, it's just because, again, it's just part of doing business. We're going to try to keep it as little as possible. But that's just the way it's going to have to be. In any case, you want to just start going right into today's slate. Do you have any overall views, or do you want me to just go right to the first game?
Yeah, I'll just point out that on my sheet, I'm going to start doing this, and I might get in trouble, but I'm going to post my original builds on my sheets where I do my plays and my ownerships. The first build of the day is what I'm calling it, and I didn't get the picture loaded correctly, but I will get it straightened out and have all that stuff done, and it's going to look a lot prettier soon. But to give you an idea of just sort of what my first go-to is when I go through the slates, because I want you guys to get an idea of what I'm doing, and then I write in my ownerships of what I intend to get of each team and pitcher and all that stuff. So just keep an eye out for that. And then on these, my first thought on the slate was you do have like 2 pitchers who stand out to me, and one of them's in the first game above everybody else with a couple guys with some upside, and there's 2 stacks I really like, which are the first and last game. So we'll get right into it, I guess, with that being said.
Okay, so I guess you like Manoah as one of your pitchers, mm-hmm. And well, I'll just start talking about. Why don't you start with this first game?
Sure. So I think Manoah is a really got absolutely awesome stuff. He gets to go to the National League, face the depleted Washington team that we've been trying to pick on. Not that there's nothing in their lineup, but it is weakened. We saw him put up 32 against a weak Angels team the other day. Even pitched well against Boston. Only had 15 fantasy points, but pitched well last time against them. 25 against the Royals before that. Flashed upside against Tampa Bay right before that with 38. This is a huge upgrade for a pitcher pitching in the American League East, coming to the National League East and facing one of the worst teams in the Nationals, who obviously are the depleted lineup. I think there's a lot of strikeout upside. I like his over 6.5 K prop, and I think Manoah is one of the top pitchers on the slate. And I think I have him as the second best pitcher on the slate, and I have the Blue Jays as my second favorite stack as of right now.
Yeah, so I'm sort of in agreement with you, but not exactly to the same degree. So first of all, with respect to Toronto, it's the normal thing, you know. They certainly, for me, if there was salary were an issue, I would say, yeah, I mean, they're probably the most likely to score the most fantasy points. But it is going to be tough, I think, to get some of these guys in. And it's funny. One of the things I thought about when we were talking about yesterday with San Diego, you were saying, well, one way you can get different is to play Cronenworth over Tatis. And I was thinking, as I was trying to fill out these lineups here, I noticed that Bichette and Semien are at the same position. And one thing you could do is play Semien instead of Bichette, but even still, even Semien doesn't, you don't get any bargains over there. So we'll see if you could actually play these Toronto guys, and that's why they're showing as kind of low owned, because it is very difficult to play. I happen to have Manoah ranked a little lower than you, but I still have him in my top four. I have him basically tied for 3-4. But I do like him. Washington's pretty weak, and Manoah certainly has upside and good stuff as you mentioned. So I'm in agreement with you to not the same degree with Manoah, and I'm in agreement with you in principle with Toronto. Although I don't exactly know how I'm going to get all those guys in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's doable. I did it on FanDuel with Burns, so I know it's doable. It does depend on how their lineup shakes out, but if you have to use a catcher on FanDuel, which I ended up doing with Kirk in one of my first builds, as you'll see if you guys check out my sheets on TrueDFS, it's not the ideal way of doing it, but I don't think that's the worst way to go if you want to try and get a kind of a creative stack, and also to obviously get low ownership on guys like that. But you have to get a little creative to try and get it in. There are some value plays that you can find as one-offs and ways to get it in. But Toronto, they are expensive, but I think it's worth it to take that shot. And it is going to National League Park. It's a little bit of a downgrade for them. They don't get to have all their DHs and all that stuff. But let's see how the lineup shakes out too. I think if Dickerson's in the lineup, it could be a little bit of source of some salary relief for them. I'm not sure that'll happen, but we'll see what happens with Springer. He's day-to-day right now. And assuming that Dickerson is in, he's 3.4, that would be the guy who sort of makes some things work along with Kirk, and maybe you get a 4-man instead of a 5-man. That's probably the best way to talk about doing it.
I currently.
You ready to talk about? Go ahead.
Oh, what were you going to say?
Sorry, go ahead. No, I didn't know if you were ready to go to the next one.
Yeah, I got it. So my question I get in the next game is the Yankees Red Sox is a 7-inning game, and I currently don't have either of these pitchers in my projections. Right, they will be a little bit later, and whenever you have a 7-inning game, you always have to consider the possible upside of the complete game. Initially, it doesn't seem as though either of these guys are the complete, are 7-inning type of guys, especially considering they're facing each other, which is, you know what I mean? Like they're facing the other team, which is a good hitting environment. So I currently don't have any interest in this game, but is this something we should keep an eye on because it's a 7-inning game with respect to pitchers? We need to know who's pitching.
Yeah, we need to know who's pitching. We don't care about the hitting in this game. It would just be if Houck's pitching, I have interest there, and that would be basically it. If he's probably going to start the first one today, if he doesn't, and he's pitching this one, I would play some of Houck against the Yankees, who just swing and miss like crazy. And that's all I've got for this. I think we can just move on.
Okay, I have the starters by the way being Eovaldi and Gill. That's who I have right now.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to speculate. We have this happen all the time. There's just no reason until we get a confirmation, I think.
Okay, so I'll move on to the next game. What do you think of Cubs against Cincinnati?
There's an argument to be made for Gutierrez. There's an argument to be made for everybody against the Cubs. Just because we've seen them just strike out a ton to righties. We got Gutierrez coming into his own, 20 plus 18 or more fantasy points, 4 starts in a row, 22 or more, 3 in a row against some actual real life teams. And one of them was this Cubs teams, but that was when they still had some of their players left. I think Gutierrez is completely on the board. I didn't find myself getting to him in my first builds, and I am absolutely not going to stack against Kyle Hendricks. I understand it. I'm a big Reds at home stacking guy. But I think that what I'll probably end up doing is I may end up with a little Gutierrez by the end of the day, and I certainly wouldn't mind a couple of these Cubs bats as one-offs because they're cheap. And on the other side of it, obviously not in the same lineups, But that's pretty much all I've got here. A little bit of Gutierrez and a little bit of the Cubs, namely, Ortega's not that cheap anymore, but Schwindel, depending on where he's in the lineup, if he's second again. You have Wisdom, who I'm not going to pay for, but you have a lower strikeout pitcher against a guy who strikes out 42% of the time. Kind of interesting. Chirinos as a catcher. But really, it's really, I guess, just Schwindel, who I would consider as a value play at this point.
Yeah. So for me, I had Gutierrez as again like a very very secondary. Actually, that's not true. Yeah, I have him as a secondary pitching option below the other 1, 2, 3, 4 guys I like more. And interestingly, we didn't do a slate overview, but as I was about to say that the Cubs actually rated to be decent quote unquote values, it reminded me that there's just no high priced pitchers aside from Burns, right, that you need to get.
Right.
So it's not as if, you need to pay down for these kind of like cheapo stacks, right? Even though they're quote unquote good values. So I don't think I'm going to get to the Cubs today, even though they're going to probably project to be kind of decent, actual values, just because of the way the slate is going to shape up. I did not get to Cincinnati, although I mean every day they score 20 runs, so it's kind of silly to me not to, I guess. But yeah, that's where I'm at with this game. If it's okay, we can move ahead.
Let's move ahead.
Okay, so what do you think of Atlanta, Miami?
So I think Yanoa for Atlanta is going to be really popular today. I think Alcantara is a really good pitcher in real life. I think both these guys might get some ownership today. Same K prop and a 2.5K price difference makes me think Yanoa is going to get most of the love. I don't mind Alcantara as a weird, like, large field play. I don't think that the current ownership I'm looking at on him, I can't be right. You have an extreme pitcher's umpire here. I don't think you're taking any bats in this game. I probably will be under the field on Yanoa if he's going to end up being too popular, but I definitely have interest in him. And I don't mind if you want to use Gutierrez from the game before as a pivot off of him. Miami and Chicago are the teams you want to target against. And so I like Yanoa. I just don't feel like he's a must-have. I do think he and Gutierrez grade out fairly similarly for me. Yanoa a little bit better, but if it's all ownership-based, I don't mind using Gutierrez instead of Yanoa. That's where I'm at.
Anything from the hitting on either side or no?
Nope. Only the cheap, like anybody minimum cost, like Brinson, if they just won't raise his price. The guy's actually having a good season. I'll play Lewis Brinson and just stick him in there in some lineup because he's 2.2 if I need to, but I don't think I'm going to end up needing to do that today.
It's going to be quite the tongue twister. But if you want to play guys like Toronto, you could play the Manoah pitching combination.
That's true. Damn it, we love those rhyming ones too. Maybe I have to do that now. I'm gonna make a little note to myself.
And that's actually what I might end up doing in some lineups, because I do have, and this is why he's going to be popular. Obviously, he's going to project to be a really good point per dollar play. As most pitchers end up being, pitching against Miami, in Miami specifically. So yeah, he's going to be good. Again, I don't know if I'm going to want to go with, say, Burns and Yanoa and a chalky hitting combination, right? But if I want to double pay down, if I could play Yanoa and Manoah, that would be kind of a cool little tongue twister to get me to the Torontos that I was yearning a little bit earlier. So yeah, that's where I'm at, and I'm not into the hitting too much in this game at all, actually.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Do you have any interest, if at any, describe it in the Baltimore Tampa game?
I have none. I understand if you want to stack Tampa Bay again, I will not be doing so. The one-offs, Nelson Cruz, fine. Means hasn't been quite the same this year, but I still believe in him as an overall talented. And also, you have a terrible bullpen behind him, so there's no problem I have whatsoever with stacking Rosarena. I don't know about Diaz actually, but maybe even Diaz, but Cruz, Zunino, they all stand out to be decent enough plays. I just personally am going to go different with my builds. I'm not going to talk about 100 different stacks. They're definitely viable, just not for me. And I'm not using anybody else in this game. Maybe a one-off of Cruz, I think, makes some sense. That's basically it.
Okay, I have literally not a shred of interest in in this game. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm
Skip it.
going to go ahead to this next game, which is a little bit confusing to me. So, don't tell me anything and then tell me that I'm getting Dylan Bundy at 6K against Detroit. I'm going to say, okay, so he's 80% on. Where do I go next? And it doesn't seem to be the case. I guess probably because he's been kind of shitty this year, I suppose. But hell, isn't this what we're supposed to do, Bobby?
Both of these pitchers are probably what we're supposed to do. I like the over on both K props of these guys. They're both 4.5. I could see it going badly, and I could see wanting to stack the other side. There's great arguments for it. These big guys have been giving up a ton of home runs, especially Mize, by the way. I don't know what's gotten into him. He was keeping the ball on the ground, and he's just been letting these guys just hammer him lately. I don't, both these offenses are offenses we've been happy to target. I'm going to have a good share of both of these pitchers. I'm sorry, a good share of Bundy. I haven't gotten to Mize as much yet because I think Mize fits in sort of the Gutierrez category for me. But I definitely am going to have some Bundy, and I don't mind if you want to stack the other side. It's not what I'm doing personally, but if you're going to be playing a ton of lineups, you're playing 150, you should probably have exposure to both these offenses and both these pitchers.
Yeah, I didn't quite get to Mize as much as Bundy, but I could certainly do it. And the more I think about this, the more that that Burns is just not going to be there for me. I really think that I'm going to like these double pay downs to get to those hitting. I get that hitting, I think. And not Burns is certainly rating to be the top scorer, but unless he scores 30, I'm not particularly upset about it. You know what I mean? Not having him. Because I can get 30 out of Guerrero himself, like if I want.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I really didn't think about it this way when I was first looking at this, but each of these kind of cheapo pitchers that kind of look okay, I think I might want to do that.
Yeah. I think they're definitely viable. And there's upside too. There's upside, especially there's upside to go with it, but there's also a huge amount of risk. They're definitely not safe. You don't want to play them in anything that you feel like you've got a wild lineup and you just need to fit a pitcher in. I think that they are very, very high risk, high reward pitchers, especially Bundy. But I would say the same, pretty similarly true about Mize.
Now let's say this though. Okay, so whenever I think about double paying down, I'm like, what are you getting for that, right? So just for a sample, I put like Bundy and Burns, and as we get to this Milwaukee game, into this lineup builder. I mean, this DK lineup with all the expensive, pretty much the expensive Reds, Torontos, and it's harder. But I mean, like, I didn't really look at all the cheapos yet, but there's always cheapos, right? I mean, as long as Houston is still in the game, and you can still get Chas McCormick at 2,400. You can still get Jake Myers at 2,100. I'm just looking ahead, right? You can still get Tyler Naquin at 2,300, Schwindel at 2,300. So you can do all of this, right?
Yep.
So with that said, maybe you don't need to be too fancy as we get to the Milwaukee game where, Corbin Burns does rate to be the best pitcher. He rates to be probably the best value too. I mean, considering his price also, and he's going to be the most popular. So Burns certainly rates for me as the top pitcher. I presume same for you.
Yeah, if I was at home and playing a bunch of lineups, absolutely for Burns is the top pitcher. But I mean, he makes so much sense on DraftKings at 10.2 because it's a little actually harder on FanDuel, but you can still do it. I mean, 11.2. FanDuel's done a better job of pricing people a little bit up rather than DraftKings, who just is leaving guys at the minimum for some reason. I just point out that Adam Wainwright has been awesome, like completely awesome, and nobody ever plays him. He just threw a complete game. He put up 42 the last time out. I know it was Pittsburgh, but we've seen Milwaukee struggle at times. And I certainly wouldn't mind taking a shot on Wainwright again if I was playing a bunch of lineups, but I'm not going to be playing a ton of lineups today, so I'm not going to get to him. And I have Burns as the top pitcher. I am not interested in one bat from this game.
Sounds good to me. So let's move ahead then to Seattle, Texas. You have any interest in anything here?
So apparently Tyler Anderson gets to just face Texas every time he pitches. And last time, as Cardi and everybody else, and everybody's talking about how you have to play Tyler Anderson. You're crazy if you don't play Tyler Anderson. Best pitcher on the slate. He projects to be the highest and all this stuff. And I'm just going, okay, whatever. Now I actually do have a little bit of interest because no one's going to play. He's going to be 10% owned. He was like 45% owned last time he pitched on a full slate with tons of good pitchers. Now we have less options, and Tyler Anderson is going to be about 10% owned probably. I think he's viable. I will be over the field on him just because less lefties against Texas are a thing for a reason. Nothing else for me on this slate. If you wanted to get to a Seattle batter too, I'm not going to say you're doing anything wrong. It's just not for me on this giant slate. I do think Tyler Anderson is in play in that mid tier, probably a little safer than guys like Gutierrez. Maybe not quite as safe as Inoa. I don't know. Actually, maybe even maybe right around the similarly to Inoa. Although I say that, and here he's put up a combined 19 fantasy points the last 2 times he's played this team. So I actually like him as a tournament play. I didn't like him as chalk. I do like him as a tournament play. If he gets above 20%, not going to have any interest. If he stays below, I will have some interest. That's it for me.
Okay. I have pass from this game, so I'm perfectly willing to go ahead to Oakland and Chicago.
Makes sense to me. Speaking of guys who no one plays, right? Like it's an extreme hitters umpire. It's not the best lineup in the world to face, although there are some strikeouts in there. Look, if you want to take a shot at with Chris Bassett, again, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, go ahead. I'm not playing enough lineups where I'm getting to him. Totally understand the play, just not for me today. And then Ronaldo Lopez is coming back, but probably going to be very, very limited. I mean, well, not, coming back. He's been pitching, but he's been pitching bullpen innings. I don't know how much they're going to let him go. He's 5.2. If for some reason we thought he was going to throw 80 pitches, I think he'd be completely in play, 75. But I'm not going to assume that because he hasn't pitched more than 3 innings since coming back, and they should treat him with kid gloves because he still could probably get there, by the way, for this price, but I just don't think we need to do it on this slate. Both these guys are good enough with mediocre enough bullpens to where I'm just not going to have any interest in this game whatsoever.
Okay. I have nothing. So we can go ahead to Houston, Kansas City and address I'll let you start. What do you think of Houston, Kansas City?
So we can keep going ahead and picking on Lynch, who's mostly been pretty good, even though he's given up some hard contact. But since he's actually been a full-time starter, has been a lot better, and it had some tough matchups too. I mean, he had to face Toronto, the White Sox, and the Yankees, who are well-known lefty crushers. And he's been pretty good in all those matchups. I like Houston a little bit tonight. I like the value of McCormick. I like the value of I don't mind the lefties. I'll play Brantley. I love Aledmus Diaz, who's going to be probably a little bit lower owned at third. I don't mind getting pieces. Not going to fully stack them probably again. I like a few stacks better, but I certainly don't mind if you want to stack Houston. And at the same time, I just want to say that I think Lynch is a little bit better than people have given him credit for. I'm not going to play Valdez at this price and against a team that doesn't strike out against his pitch type or lefties that much. So, but there is some value here. Like I will take a shot or two on Michael Taylor if he's batting 5th again at 2.1. He's another one of those cheapos, 100 Dozier. But overall, Valdez is a good pitcher. We can do better than trying to stack against him. So I personally have interest in some of the mini stack side of Houston, and that's pretty much it for me in this game.
Yeah, so once again, is Houston, is it going to be the same chalk as last night? Is it going to be Houston plus Coors? Is that the same deal? Because I have Houston rated. I have Houston rated as the top option again, and
it happens every time Lynch pitches, and yet not once has it worked out for anybody. And we've got a full slate. That's the only thing I would warn anybody about. When you see a team that stands out like that against a pitcher that hasn't had a game that you'd be happy with again, like literally has not blown up once since they made him the full-time starter. He was pitching just like mid innings-ish before, or not mid, like a couple innings before. So I just would just caution, like, maybe there's a little bit of something to this guy that he's not quite as bad, and everybody goes, oh, he's getting lucky with this and that. I'm like, he's striking guys out too. These guys are not really touching him up. So I don't know. That's just where I stand.
Yeah, I currently do have Houston as not by a lot, but as the kind of top overall option. But it's a 100-game slate. I have no problem getting away from it if it turns out to be as chalky as I think they might be. So we'll see how it goes. You like any? And I don't like any Valdez. I don't like any of the. I didn't like Lynch, and I think we can move on. And I'll start with the Cleveland Minnesota game because I find this game a little bit interesting. So, if you're going to play any of these other cheapos, I think that Bailey Ober is also a cheapo that you can consider. It's not my, not a mandatory or anything like that, but I definitely think that, if you're going to play those guys, I think that Ober's almost as good as the other guys that I mentioned. And if you want to get off of Ynoa, for example, I think that Ober is worth a stab. And with that said, I do like both hitting situations, both Minnesota and Cleveland for value. Again, I don't know if you're going to need it, but I do have both those teams ranked pretty high. And just to kind of read off some of the guys I like, Rooker, Donaldson, Polanco, Kepler, Cave. Then if you want to play Garver, if he gets in, you could play him. And the Cleveland side, you could always play Jose Ramirez and, watch, see if Reyes is in. Then Bradley Zimmer, who did nice. He had a home run yesterday. And all the usual suspects from Cleveland. So again, it's not the end of the world if you don't play either of these teams, but they do rate for me as decent values.
Totally agree about the value on the hitting side. I think that the other pitchers we mentioned are better pitchers than Ober, better plays than Ober. I don't have it called up right now, but I'll take a quick look while we're here because Ober, they made it very clear he wasn't going to throw more than 75 pitches in a game. The manager said that a number of times this season.
Oh, okay.
I think he might have actually surpassed that a couple of times. But I would just rather play the guys with a leash. And like this guy hasn't put up 20 in once in his last 10 starts. We've got a guy in Gutierrez who's put up 4 in a row actually, kind of 4 in a row over 18, and he's facing the weakest lineup in baseball. So I in the National League. So I would probably just say that to me would be the better play. But I certainly could see Ober having a decent game. He's got some decent K stuff. This is a pretty weak lineup overall, but I also think that the value makes sense. My favorite would be Donaldson from this game. And then you get into the Zimmer, Rooker, Straw, Ramos, Mercado. Maybe a little mini stack here would certainly make sense on either side. Even Sano down at the bottom of the order for Minnesota, I don't mind at 3.3. Even Garver at 3.9, 2.7 on FanDuel. I totally get the value in this. I just don't think these are I'm not determined to stack them, but I will use them as 2-3-mans or something like that to go with my main stacks. So I definitely agree with you pretty much entirely on this game, except for I don't think I'll be using Ober. If I played a bunch of lineups, maybe I'd get him in one, but I just prefer the other 7K-ish guys.
Yeah, to that point, that's a pretty good call with respect to Minnesota maybe managing this guy, because even though I didn't see the game, I'm just looking at the game log here, and he faced the White Sox and he gave up nothing. I mean, he gave up 1 walk. He had 6 strikeouts, no runs, and they wouldn't even let him through the 6th. I think that 80 might be like a really kind of almost a hard cap for him.
They said 75 was a hard cap earlier.
Yeah. Right, but I see, but he had 82 pitches, so I'm just kind of just inferring that 80 might be kind of a hard cap. Maybe they let him through that one batter, and then they pulled him out of the game. So, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go.
Is it me first? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I don't have that much interest in this game from any perspective. If we want to talk about 7K guys with upside, I think Marquis has to be in the conversation, and I think it has to be. We don't care where he's pitching anymore. We've gone through this so many times on the year. Anybody who's watched our shows, somewhat familiar with us, understands we have been on this guy. Now he has these weird bad starts that are mostly away from home. But I mean, this guy has been lights out mostly at home. He's been great on the road too. He's actually having a very good season. I know San Diego's a tough lineup. I'm not saying to play him. I'm just saying it's enough of a reason to not want to play too much San Diego for me. I will have little one-offs from this game, 2-man things. I like Tatis, of course. I mean, how could I not like Tatis in Coors? I don't mind, some of the other, the Tommy Pham, Grisham, depending on if he can get higher in the order. Cronenworth as a shortstop play, it's too cheap these are all DK plays for me. On FanDuel, and then I do like some of the Rockies for one-offs, but the Rockies are cheap, but you can't look at it and people are going to say, oh, look, you got Strom and a bad lefty and all this stuff. San Diego has the second best bullpen in the major leagues, and they're pitching a bullpen game. That's not where I want to be trying to attack. I don't mind, like I said, the one-offs, especially Story, But then for cheap, Connor Joe, Daza, if he's batting any higher than 8th, even still, I might consider him, and Hampson. You could even do a little 3-man back with those guys. But that's pretty much all I have for this game. It's going to be one-offs to up to 3-man maybe, but no full stacks for me.
Right. The only thing I would say is that, based on our conversation with Bailey Ober, I mean, Marquis has just light years more upside than Ober at the same price.
Right.
That to win a GPP, that's for dang sure. I'm with you. I don't really have too much interest either. And if this were not the Coors game, I'd almost say, okay, this is kind of a pass. Let's move on. But because it's the Coors game, we have to give it a little more respect. Just because it's going to be talked about. But I just feel as though if San Diego rated to be like the top, even raw points thing, I would say, okay, maybe their value isn't so great, but let's try to get them in. But I have teams rated above them even on raw points today, and likewise in Colorado, I guess is fine. I think I might, I don't even prefer Colorado over San Diego. I just don't, I think I'm kind of with you. I'm just kind of off of this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
All right, so let's move on. What do you think of Philly, Arizona?
Both pitchers are awesome, get creative GPP plays, incredibly good. Again, you're Caleb Smith just put up whatever against, what did he put up against San Diego? What did he put up, 25? Or no, it wasn't that high.
Yeah, absolutely. 23.
23 against them in 5 1/3. He's got strikeouts upside. Look, it's not like the funnest button to click, but that's San Diego. That's literally the worst possible matchup for him. And he put up 23 against them. He's got, he could put up 20s plus. He's another one I would consider in that cheap range, but I'm not going to end up playing enough lineups to where I'm going to play these guys. I think Kyle Gibson too. I don't know what the hell they were doing. They tried something weird with him against the Dodgers. I think to try and keep him away from the lefties. They didn't have him start. They had him come in relief and pitched long relief. I don't think they'll do that against Arizona tonight. And Arizona's offense is weak enough where I could see Gibson having a strong outing, but he's probably too expensive. So both these guys are awesome if you're playing 150, but again, I'm not as interested, and I'm definitely not interested in any hitting in this game.
If I asked people that, didn't know or whatever, whether they believe that Kyle Gibson pitched over 100 pitches 4 straight games, they'd be like, what? And it is the truth. They even let him, like I said, they even let him go 100 when he got torched against the Dodgers. This guy's stretched, and they want him to eat up pitches, which is good for fantasy. And considering that he's against a weak team, I don't know if 8,500 is going to make it for me. But very interesting. And Caleb Smith, here's the thing I want to point out again, with respect to baseball, sports, life in general, you left out one thing. You didn't leave it out. It wasn't, you weren't making this point that he did score 23 fantasy points in San Diego in 5.1 innings, whatever it is. And I just want to tell you guys that was just one start removed from his other game against the Padres where he didn't make it out of the second inning, okay, and give up 5 runs. Baseball's funny like that. You know what I mean? I bet you people were looking at this. Oh, why would I put Caleb Smith? He just got rocked by them the game before. It just doesn't work that way. Pitching and baseball has so little room for so much variance of 1 centimeter off the bat. It's just, before you go and play chalk, for example, just look at stuff like this, because it's you don't see this in basketball. I mean, you really don't. I mean, you don't see a guy score 0 fantasy points and then score 50. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just the dispersion of results is just so wide in baseball, and that's why, again, I put my numbers up, I put projections up, but of all the sports, I would say projections mean the least in baseball. Okay.
Yep.
And as little as you think it means, it probably means a little even less than that. Right.
Yep.
So, I don't know if I'm going to get to any of that, but I certainly agree with the sentiment.
Yeah.
What do you think of, speaking of more wild play, what do you think of Mets San Francisco?
I like Logan Webb. I think he's playable on both sides. I have him ahead of a guy like Kyle Gibson. He's looked really good, albeit against some pretty soft teams. I don't think the Mets lineup terrifies me, especially being in San Francisco. He's been solid even against good teams like the Dodgers and Houston. He actually pitched really well. I like the way I like the way he looks lately, and I wouldn't mind even using him on FanDuel if you need to go down a little bit. So I actually think he's a better play tonight than early projections will have him. My guess is by the end of the day, he picks up some traction, especially on FanDuel. So he's the only interest I have in this game, and he is one of the pitchers I'm considering.
Any hitting?
No.
Yeah, I have zero from this game.
Yep.
Okay, you want to talk about the?
Yeah, let's do it. The Dodgers go nuts on Sunday Night Baseball, go crazy against the Mets the other night. Then they get shut down by a below average pitcher. Is that a nice way to say it? Last night. Well, you know what that means. They're gonna. I love the Dodgers tonight. I think they go completely nuts. You got Will Crow, who can't get anybody out, and I mean, I know he pitched well a couple times, or one time, I guess it is. This is not a team you can mess around with. He's going to get rocked, in my opinion. I don't see this working out well for him. I think they either leave him in too long, as they've been doing often with their pitchers, or they have him too quick a hook, and then they have a horrible bullpen behind him. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I really like the Dodgers tonight. They're my number one offense. I like them and the Blue Jays. They're my favorite pairings. Namely, we get Seager, Muncy, mostly Muncy. Muncy would be number one. Seager, Bellinger, Will Smith would probably be number 4, Turner, then whether it's Pollock, Taylor, depending on how they do it, or McKinney even for the savings down at the bottom. I know they'll have some ownership tonight. I love them. I think they are the best chance of a team to go really, really, really nuts. Sure, there's going to be weird nights like yesterday that happened to the Dodgers after going crazy the night before. This is a night where I expect them to go nuts, and I will be all over them. And they will have the majority of my ownership on both sides.
I have the Dodgers rated as the top stack with respect to just raw ability to put up fantasy points. I don't have them, I mean, obviously rated as well when it comes to value, but close enough where I think overall, when you factor in, I don't want to say ownership because they'll be owned. Today, I do have them on par with Houston. I would say the Dodgers are probably better than Houston. Considering also, I do think they will be lower owned for no other reason than like we talked about this yesterday. They're a little slow to release their lineups, so people don't want to wait.
They're not even slow. They're just the last team to play.
Right. Right.
It's not like they're the Angels who wait
yeah,
an hour.
exactly.
Yeah.
So there's that, and also maybe the fact that I don't think the fact that they didn't score yesterday is going to keep ownership down. I think people are a little sharper than that, but I agree with you. I like the Dodgers a lot, and I think it's very nice of them to allow us to play both Turner and Seager. And Seager at 4,600 is kind of is I think Seager and Bellinger at sub 5K against the guy who could throw batting practice at times is, I think those right. Two are just seriously good plays. And those other guys, Muncy, Turner, double Turner. I mean, this is another team that, like you could get to these guys easier than you can get the Toronto guys, for example. And you can get to these guys easier than you get to the San Diego. And I think that the more I think about it, I do like the Dodgers probably better than Houston here. What's the weather there? Oh, it's not there. What's the weather in LA? That's right. It's not there. You're in Boston.
It's in LA. It's not where I am. So I actually don't have it called up right now, but I'm sure that it's fine this time of year. And I'm gonna guess that it's going to be somewhere in the mid 70s at the worst. I'm just going to take a quick look here, but I think that I want to just say, if you want to get a little more creative, play McKinney at the bottom of the order. Use him as your value if you're using a 5-man stack. He hit a home run last night. He's actually looked pretty good at the plate, and at least he's got the pitcher behind him, so he's gonna have a chance to put up some points no matter what. Especially with guys like Bellinger hitting right in front of him, who I love, and he's going to be lower owned because he's batting 7th. Doesn't mean anything. He's 4,200 and he's a great play, and so is Chris Taylor, who hasn't been hitting the ball as well as he was for a while. But I think those are your 3 low-owned guys who you include in your stacks that I think are really, really solid plays. And Will Smith, I just love. Is by far the top catching option for me. Been great against righty. 74 degrees in LA with a little wind blowing out. So yeah, not ideal, like not 82 or something like some of these places are going to be. But I absolutely love the Dodgers. And by the way, on the other side, to just prove that I'm not being a total Dodgers homer, Brian Reynolds is 3,100. That's a crime. I think you should mix in a combo stack of this game. I think Stallings, I think Brian Reynolds, I think Park, assuming that they do lead him off against the lefty. I think Brian Hayes is in play. Rodolfo Castro. You can use your value from this Pittsburgh side against David Price. Now, I wouldn't fully stack them against the Dodgers bullpen and Price for whatever innings, but I don't buy into what Price has done recently. I think he's very hittable. I think he's got about 3 to 4 good innings in him every start at best. And even that, I don't feel totally confident in. So I'm a big fan of trying to get out there and take some bats from Pittsburgh on the other side of this game for your value.
Yeah, there's yeah, I'm into the Dodgers here. All right.
Look at Pittsburgh. I'm telling you that.
Do you want to review
yeah.
who you what you like?
Yeah, let's do a quick sum up. My pitchers are in order: Burns, Manoah, Bundy, and Anderson. I have the same right now, but I'm hoping to get lower ownership on Bundy if he doesn't go there. Then I've got Noah and Webb. And then my favorite stacks are Dodgers, Blue Jays, Rockies, Padres, Astros. I probably am not going to get to the full Rockies and Padres stacks. Those are going to be 3-man stacks for me. Same with the Astros. And I might just put the Pirates up there on my list because I think the Pirates as a 3-man or a 2-man, that's really where I like them. I just want to use them for my value. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if a Reynolds and Brian Hayes, you end up getting like a total like 35, 40 fantasy points between those two cheapos. Or you could include Park in a 3-man. They're just so cheap. They kind of make the Blue Jays and Dodgers work. So that's what I'm doing on FanDuel. It's Burns mostly for me. Manoah, Anderson, and Webb are my other 3 guys in that order. Pretty much Manoah, Anderson, and Webb I have about the same interest of. And then a little bit more Astros for me on FanDuel than I have on DK. I do love McCormick as a one-off.
Burns and Manoah top for me. Then Bundy and Manoah the second group, and then you have guys that are a lot of guys we mentioned who are pretty damn close between, take a shot on Marquis, take a shot on the Gibson or whoever Gibson was against, take a shot on Mize, maybe, whatever. And with respect to the hitting, Dodgers and Astros top 2, and then Toronto, then some other stuff like Minnesota, Cleveland, which I don't think you're going to need. So I will throw in, by the way, one kind of maybe a couple of one-offs that maybe we didn't mention. I do like Raphael Ortega a little bit at 3,400. He just swings the bat really, really hard. It's like, and I like that. And I do like you mentioned Stallings maybe as a catcher to go in that Dodger game. Who else? Connor Joe remains cheap. Rooker remains cheap. McCormick, who you mentioned, I like him. Naquin looks good.
Yeah, Pittsburgh and parts of that, oddly enough, the Houston lineup. But Pittsburgh is going to be low on. I mean, play some Pittsburgh bats, guys. David Price, David Price is in name only. Sure, anybody could shut him down at some point, but these guys are super cheap, and it's a super soft matchup. If it was any other team anywhere else, David Price would the run total would be much higher, and people would be talking about playing guys against David Price. Pittsburgh will release their lineup late as well. You're going to get no ownership on guys who are in a great spot. So try and pick on David Price a little.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're good, right, Cheats?
We are good. And today, so here's something to keep an eye on. I'm actually doing a video of a survivor pool preview for the year, and I'm going to be actually have a pretty sharp guest on. Guy's name is Brave Jayhawk, who's a poker player, also a kind of survivor expert. Also, he actually reached out to me and asked if he could, join me for the preview. So I said, sure, no problem. And I'm going to be putting that up. And where are you? Are you around this evening or?
I'll try to be there for live. Sometimes the restream is a little harder with the internet, but I will definitely try to make it work. So yeah, hopefully I can make it for at least 20 minutes or so before it cuts out on me.
All right, sounds good.
All right, good luck to everybody. Good luck, man. Thanks for organizing this part of it. And guys, I hope you crush tonight. Let us know how you did. And remember, you can sign up for TrueDFS.com for free right now for the first month. If you don't like it, get out of there. If you do like it, great. Stick with us and jump in the Discord. And we got a great group in the Discord. So we'd love to see you guys around and hopefully somebody takes it down.
All right. See you guys later.
Good luck.
So I'll upload all this.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.